Welcome back to your World Cup wrap-up show brought to you by the Maximum Cricket Podcast. On today's show, we are down to the final third of the round robin and the teams have split themselves into four groups. The bottom tier, who are fighting for Champions Trophy qualification and the wooden spoon. Some of those teams have only just found out about this, but I will let you guess who that is. Next tier is the pretenders, or the outside looking in. These are teams that aren't that far away from the semis, probably won't make it, but they have a chance. The contenders, they're in the semi-finals, and these are teams you can honestly say they have a chance at playing India in the final because they are in their own tier, India. Today's show, we'll be discussing those four tiers, who from their groups are most likely to move up tiers, and who is more likely to move down a tier. Hint, England cannot drop down any further.
Brilliant. It's a hero maximum. On the ground, down the ground, another hero maximum.
Boys, my name is Munter, and I'm joined by Lugsy and Jacko as always. We are getting very, very close to the finish line. Last week, we checked in on the top 10 most runs in the World Cup, and the boys nailed a perfect 10. So this week, it's the bowlers' turn. Can you boys give me the top 10 most wickets at this year's World Cup?
I reckon this is going to be a bit tougher. This is where we should lean on Jacko, actually.
Yeah, probably, but...
Has Zamps, it's so, because guys have taken, is Shami and Zamps up there now?
Shami's played 2 games.
Yeah, Shami will be up there.
Yeah, but he's got 9, isn't he? Does 9 not get you there?
Zampa's, he's top. He's at 16.
That's incredible.
No, Shami's not there.
That's incredible.
So
Boomerang.
Not far off.
out the gate early.
Yeah, Boomerang's at 2, 14 poles.
Santner.
Yeah, he tied for second, 14.
Yeah.
I feel like Jadeja will be there. He's just chipping away.
He's not there. He's got less than Shami.
Yeah, so 9 obviously doesn't get you there. How many games we played? 6. I suppose that is a few.
9's very close. The cutoff's 10.
Yeah.
Rashid Khan will have to have 10, won't he?
No, hasn't really taken one of the polls.
We've just bloody came quicker than... Yeah, we've lost it quick there.
That's a quick.
I don't know how Munter counts all of these as guesses. I mean, you and I are just having some dialogue here, Cross.
This is an earlier bloody...
I'll give you one. The Shami one I'll allow, so I'll give you one last crack.
Yeah, okay. Right.
So
we will confirm our guesses from here as well.
Yeah, great, cool. It's an England-like defence so far from us.
Yeah. Will any Kiwis be there, do you think, Crom?
Well, we've got Santner.
Santner.
I don't want to go Henry, but he did take a couple early.
Yeah, I reckon it's a late doors guess. Surely some Africans are there.
Well, of some African description.
Like a Rabada or a Shamsi, maybe?
Yeah, but it's harder with these bowlers to lock in.
I haven't got a clue who's taking wickets at this cup, just quietly.
No, we're not in a great position.
Well, it just feels like outside of Zampa and Boomer, it doesn't feel like anyone's taking heaps. It feels like guys are Zampa took 400 and chipping away.
Yeah, Zampa took none to start as well. So,
all right, let's rattle off some guesses. Let's move on, hey.
Yeah, give us some names here.
Or I'll just go Edel Rashid just to give you a guess.
Yeah, no, he's out. So that's
okay.
That's a big fall from grace for the lads. So we're missing.
Gav, just cut that.
We're missing Janssen, Shaheen Afridi, Madashankar, Jared Coetzee, Henry, and Baz Delita.
Yeah, I was going to go Henry.
And Rabada.
Kagese. My Kagese.
So that's all right. We move on.
Some, lose most.
That's a real. Won't make a clip out of that.
That's a real bottom tier sort of effort. So that sort of does lean in nicely to our to start with our bottom tier of our power rankings. So I'll do them in order of the current placings, and what I'll do is I'll I'll give you the lay of the land. I'll say their win-loss record, their form sheet, and who their last 3 games are. And essentially, we're going to sort of discuss who's going up and who's going down, sort of thing. So, at number 10, we've got England with 1 win and 5 losses this week alone, losing to Sri Lanka and India. Their last 3 games, Australia, Netherlands, and Pakistan. At 9th, Bangladesh, 1 win, 5 losses. They lost to South Africa and the Netherlands this week. The last 3 games, Pakistan, which is tonight, and Sri Lanka and Australia. Netherlands at 8, could count themselves unlucky to be in this group, but they're 2 wins and 4 losses. Big loss to Australia and a win over Bangladesh. Their last 3 games are Afghanistan, England, and India. So this bottom tier has essentially become a race for the Champions Trophy qualification, which for some reason is only available to 8 teams. Pakistan, who host the tournament, and the top 7 teams. So in theory, you have to finish 8th or better, which means 2 of these sides will miss out. So boys, with that being said, give me the most likely team to finish 8th or better, and then the most likely team to get the wooden spoon.
I'll probably go the Bangers for the wooden spoon. Feels like they've got a wee bit of a tougher ride in. I think England, they feel like they should get there, but like Netherlands could lose out and England could lose out, and it could just be the Netherlands. No, Netherlands have to beat England, don't they? So it's going to be a
big game.
Put that as your Champions Trophy qualifying game. There you go. So I reckon who wins that goes to the Champions Trophy.
I feel bad actually saying this, and I don't like favouring England, but I still have to favour them to beat the Netherlands, unfortunately. They're probably based on what we've seen. I mean, this last week, there's 2 games there. I mean, that is all-time dreadful. I mean, one of the great calls from the TMC that, their bowling's poor, but their batting will come right. Well, we've been slapped right in the face. I mean, nothing short of disgraceful, those 2 batting efforts. So, I think they'll still end up 8th. They've got more of a chance probably to knock off one of the big nations. I just favour them to beat the Netherlands. I'll put the Netherlands 9 because I think they've actually been really good this tournament. I think they've fought hard in most of the games. We talked about it last time. They don't beat themselves, which is, a huge job. You just stay in games and compete. And I think Bangers have probably been sort of the most disappointing outside of England. I think they'll come 10th in the end.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because if the Netherlands, if they can beat Afghanistan, which, we'll talk about them, they're going pretty strong, but I wouldn't say it's impossible. That means that England will have to win 2 games really, really well, or all 3 games. So that means they have to beat Australia and then Netherlands and Pakistan potentially. So it's not as easy as just England coming right because that's the thing. You just assume they're going to come right. And you look at that side on paper, and it just got class all around it. Last year, they won the T20 World Cup. I know it's a different format, but at the end of the day, it's the same sport. Honestly, Owen Morgan is like, he can't believe it. No one can believe it. Doesn't it make sense? 3 times in a row, they've not passed 200. There's nothing makes sense. Like, if anyone claims they know what's going on, they're wrong.
Well, the only thing that would be nice about England is that they could actually tip up an Aussie and a Pakistan, do us a bit of a favour. So,
yes,
if they could do that, would be lovely.
Wouldn't mind them being Australia. Wouldn't mind that at all.
It'd be nice. Surely, if there's a game they're going to get up for, that's got to be it at this stage.
That could be the turning point. Righto, our next tier, outside looking in, or the pretenders. At 7th place at the moment, Pakistan with 2 wins and 4 losses. This week they've lost to Afghanistan and South Africa. Last 3 games, Bangladesh tonight, New Zealand and England. Sri Lanka in the 6th, 2 wins and 4 losses. They beat England convincingly and then lost to Afghanistan. Their last 3 games are India, Bangladesh and New Zealand. And Afghanistan, who have been outstanding, 3 wins and 3 losses in 5th place. They've beaten Pakistan and Sri Lanka this year, 2 test playing nations. Their last 3 games are Netherlands, Australia, South Africa. Those last 2 games are going to be pretty tough, but they'll be favourites against Netherlands. 4 wins isn't impossible. That puts them level with New Zealand, Australia. This is obviously the outside looking in tier. These teams, these are the teams that could, in theory, make a late push for the semis, but they're going to need a few things to go their way. So with that being said, boys, of that group, who is most likely to actually get into 4th place? And also who's most likely to just fall right off a cliff and potentially finish below 8th?
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky. I want to say Afghanistan for both. I'd love their Cinderella run to continue, but I could see them falling off a cliff overnight, and sort of, everything regressing to the median. England wins 3, and suddenly they've had an okay World Cup and lost a couple they shouldn't. And, Afghanistan could lose 3, and they're right back where we sort of thought they were as developing. But in saying that, Afghanistan have learned how to bat out of nowhere, and we've discussed their spin attack at length. So, what's not to say they go all the way? What's not to say they sneak into that top 4 with a wee Cinderella finish? But probably not too realistic. It's probably maybe a Pakistan eke out a few wins and get there realistically. But I could see it being Afghanistan for both. Who's to say no?
Yeah, I think Afghanistan have been really the surprise of this tournament and played brilliant. It's not that they've won these games. I mean, that's unexpected in itself, but I think it's how they're winning that's really shocking. They're so professional, as I said last time. They're doing these run chases in a canter.
2 down, 1 down.
Yeah, incredible stuff from them. And I think, you've got to favour them, obviously, to beat the Netherlands. But Pakistan is still... I mean, they've really fallen away as predicted by one Matthew Hunter. And Luke was on it early that he wasn't, even though they had won a couple of games, he wasn't impressed. But if they can get it right tonight, I mean, and you'd favour them too, that really starts to put a bit of pressure on the next the game against the Black Caps. So I still think if they can get their pieces right, I mean, we've got enough sample size now that you've got to start not overthinking this too much and just go to the teams that are actually playing well. But you just always struggle to back those teams you can see something in, like England, like a Pakistan. So once again, I'll go against my sort of heart and just go that Pakistan will win tonight and then get another win in there. And as I say, a couple of pretty big games coming up for them.
Yeah, I think you always touched on it with Afghanistan, where it's almost like quite boring the way they're winning. Like it's quite comfortable. There's no real drama. They're actually just quite comfortable in the way. It's kind of like watching New Zealand play in a wee bit. Like they're bowling first. They're restricting. They got one of the best bowling attacks in the tournament. And then when they chase, they just comfortably knock it around and they do the job quite with no fuss. And it's like that doesn't look like a team that only won one World Cup game before this tournament. That looks like a professional outfit that's like used to winning those games, which is the part. So that's why I think I do think they can make a push, because I do back them to beat Netherlands. And then, we'll talk about Australia and South Africa, but one of those games, if they can win one of those games and anything could happen, they could. I mean, the South Africa's already lost.
Africa's shown they've got 190 in them, haven't they?
Yeah, so I mean, I could see them get into 5 wins, and 5 wins, that requires New Zealand to win at least one game, which is, they've got a tough run in. Australia the same. So, but in terms of falling off the cliff, Pakistan, I could just see it. Tonight's going to be interesting. They should win against Bangladesh, but you could just see it really turn into shit. I mean, Bangladesh aren't playing that well either. But Sri Lanka's probably got the worst, probably got the hardest run, and they've got India and New Zealand, and they should beat Bangladesh. So I think Sri Lanka might have missed their window. So I think they're probably most likely, but with Pakistan, you just don't know.
Yeah, I think just touching on Sri Lanka, it was a disappointing last game out, because you thought maybe with that win against England, they got 2 in a row, was there going to, because they played obviously pretty well in that Asia Cup and obviously fell away in that final, but there was a bit of form behind them there, and they started the World Cup with a couple of 300s, and their bowling was obviously poor, and I thought just with that England game, they maybe, a late push was in them, but Yeah, to lose that last game was obviously pretty disappointing. I think really ended their chances.
Mm.
I think Sri Lanka will just end up being sort of what they are. They'll just maybe win one of them, but probably won't. And I think they'll just finish probably sixth, maybe seventh. And yeah, as you said, a bit disappointing after that Asia Cup, but they've sort of just been what they've been, really.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like the teams like Pakistan and Sri Lanka, they realistically they have to win all three games to get through. They have to get 5 wins as like a bare minimum sort of thing. Yeah, and then you're relying on New Zealand, Australia to lose all three games, which it's always doable, but it's not really what you need. Whereas Afghanistan do have a slightly mathematical easier route. Right, contenders, fourth place at the moment on net run rate. Australia, 4 wins, 2 losses. This week they beat the Netherlands and beat New Zealand. The last 3 games, England, Afghanistan and Bangladesh. New Zealand in third, 4 wins, 2 losses. This week they've lost to India and Australia. Their last 3 games, South Africa, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. Not an easy route. Number 2, South Africa with 5 wins and 1 loss. They beat Bangladesh and Pakistan this week. Their last 3 games, New Zealand, India and Afghanistan. Now, these are the teams that have a serious shot of sort of making the final and losing to India. But I would say, out of all the teams in this, these are the sides that on their day can genuinely go toe-to-toe against India. Would I put money on them beating India? No. But I think there's a path, I think, for all 3 teams to, in the end, sort of beat India on their day. So boys, do you want to do who's most likely to make the final, etc., or do we just want to dig deeper into this Aussie Caps Classic? Do we want to sort of?
Yeah, I think we go Aussie Caps Classic.
Because I think that leads into like who's ahead sort of thing. So
yeah,
I do have a summary. Do you want me to sort of rattle off the summary, just sort of paint the picture? Where am I?
Take me back.
Take us back, right? Where am I?
Maybe sort of bring those memories back to me because mine got quite disturbed that night.
Yeah,
so
that's
paint
right.
a picture for me, please.
So New Zealand, so New Zealand won the toss and they chose to give Matt Henry the yips, or maybe it was a case of just freezing against Australia for the 100th time in a row. Whatever happened, it kickstarted the return of Travis Head, 19 off 1 ball. That's right, a no ball, 6 no ball, and then another 6 gave Warner and Head a launch pad. To their credit, they were unbelievable as they put our bowlers to the sword. 175 for the opening wicket off just 19 overs, 118 off the first 10 overs. The projected score was 546 at one stage. New Zealand was able to put the brakes on to a degree through Glenn Phillips, of all people, who before this game had never bowled 10 overs in an ODI. He picked up Warner for 81 off just 65. Warner was unbelievable against anything short. He hooked a ball in particular off Ferguson at 145 kilometres halfway in the stands. Phillips was also able to grab Smith for a runnable 19 and century maker Travis Head, who was unbelievable. 109 off just 67 balls after not having a bat in several weeks. And his first game back from the injury. That's special stuff. The middle period was actually all New Zealand, thanks to Phillips, but also thanks to Mitchell Marsh and Marnus, who really sort of fucked around, to be honest, who you would have thought by watching them bat were coming in at 59 for 3, not 220 for 3 after 30 overs. Such was the start. It really felt impossible for that total to be under 400, but Marsh and Marnus were able to do a job for New Zealand. They couldn't get on top of Phillips in particular, who was incredibly accurate for a part-timer. But they weren't very proactive either, to be fair. Like, I thought Marsh would really attack the off-spinner. Wasn't to be. 36 off 51, while Marnus was dismissed in the 39th over for 18 off 26. The score was 274 for 5 at this point, which meant they had made 100 for 5 in the next 20 overs after making 170 odd in the first 19. Suddenly, New Zealand were thinking 350 if they could get Maxwell. They dropped him, so that didn't help. But the big show, he sort of made us pay. He combined with Inglis to put on 50 in the next 5 overs. Watching Maxwell battle Santner was a bit of an art form for me. He was dominating with the reverse sweep until Santner put a guy back for it. brought up deep square, which meant he had to bowl really wide and slow. This worked for a few balls, and then Maxwell he changed his plan and he shimmied himself to the offside to sort of get to the pitch of the ball, smashed it back over his head for a 100-metre bomb. Next ball 6, and he won that battle. Neesham able to get rid of Maxwell for 40 off just 24, and then Cummins put the exclamation mark by smashing Neesham for 20-odd off and over to boost the total to 388. Mammoth total, so you need a fast start, which New Zealand got thanks to Conway, who destroyed Stark in particular at the top, 28 off 17, got New Zealand through to 61 off just 7 overs. But when him and Young were dismissed by Hazelwood, you would be forgiven to think Cats would roll over chasing a big squad. But Mr. Fix-It, Daryl Mitchell, patched together another partnership with the new superstar, Rachin Ravindra. They put on 100 in just 13 overs. Mitchell made a runnable 50 and was looking to launch until he finally miscued one down the long on off Adam Zampa. Zampa took 3 important wickets, including that one, Latham for 21 and Santner a little later on. While this was going on, the new superstar of New Zealand cricket, Ravindra, was compiling one of the greatest World Cup innings ever. 100 of just 77 balls, the fastest World Cup 100 for a Kiwi, beating his own record, now tied for the most World Cup 100s ever by a Kiwi. Only second ever to have multiple World Cup 100s before the age of 24. The other person, Sachin Tendulkar. Phillips was dismissed for 12, and the score was 262 for 5 off just 37 overs. The run rate was fine. New Zealand just sort of lost one or two too many wickets. Ratch and Neesham came together and things started to flow from both bats. They put on 30-odd in 3 overs to leave New Zealand needing 95 off the last 10 overs, which is very, very doable in this age. Unfortunately, Cummins finally got Ravindra in the 41st over for an incredible 116 off just 89 rocks. Cummins was probably the pick of the Sammers because Stark and Hazelwood were terrible. Particularly Stark, who for the first time went wicketless in a World Cup game, and worse, he went at 9s. When Santner was out, New Zealand needed 70 off just 6-ish overs, so it was just up to Neesham in the tail. 58 off just 39, he gave it a real good crack. At one point, New Zealand needed 43 off just 18 balls, but Neesham went close, 19 off the last. Stark to bowl it, anything can happen. First ball, 1 to bolt, 18 off 5. Next ball, summed up perfectly by the great Ian Smith. Stark, what have you done? 5 wides, 13 off 5. Neesham, next ball, gets a couple to mid-wicket, 11 off 4. Next ball, Neesham smashes it down the ground to mid-off. Honestly, I thought it was 4. Maxwell makes the save, 9 off 3. Next ball, Neesham smashes it in the gap again, down to square leg, splits the fielders. Marnus, full stretch, saves 4, 7 off 2. Second last ball, Neesham clossed the ball to mid-wicket. Marnus gets a good bounce and Neesham is run out, and that is the game. Boys, the most runs in a World Cup game ever, an instant classic between these two sides. I know who I have higher on the power rankings, but let me just your memories of this game.
Yeah, I mean that highest aggregate for World Cup springs to mind immediately, doesn't it? I think, we sort of talked about, there was some panic stations in the TMC in the group chat when Head and Warner were going, just to say, let the listeners behind the iron curtain. It's a real panic. Crom didn't really know what was happening, but we certainly did. And it was sort of all going
send them home
stage,
stuff.
But yeah, send them home, send them packing. But I mean, we were sort of hoping that, drafting the Netherlands to maybe help us beat Africa in a semi-final there at one point. But no, we came good, and I think you sort of laid it out like Stark's going to have to go the distance, which he did. Just an all-time stash. And it seems whenever we play Aussie in World Cups, it's close, especially in the pool games. Like that game against them at Eden Park, it shouldn't have been close, and somehow Aussie got a few, and we ended up only winning by a wicket. And this with Conway not getting big runs, and Daryl, who's sort of been our saviour, not getting huge runs, it sort of felt like, fuck, maybe we won't have enough. And then just managed to get close again. So just a brilliant game of one-day cricket. And I think this is what this World Cup needed, was an absolute close humdinger between two really good sides, to sort of preview what the next, I suppose, 3 pool games and finals are going to look like. So a few takeaways for the Kiwis. I think Neesham's there now. He's over Chapman for me. he's just got that big game experience. He's a world-class finisher, so you've got to have Neesham. I'm not sold we've got our bowling attack sorted yet. I think Ish needs to get in there somehow. Don't know how we do that, but I think that call might need to be made. And I mean, I've got us in Aussie dead heat still after this game because I don't think Matt Henry will be that bad again. But then again, I don't know if Stark will be that bad again. So I feel like we're neck and neck with Aussie, and there's some games against Africa to go, but we could be team 2 and 3 between us and Aussie when it's all said and done.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a hell of a game of cricket. That first innings, you don't want to. Sometimes when the hitting's that good, you don't want to break it down too much. You just enjoy it. Like we were two sides of the wicket. We bowled a bit short. I'd say the biggest thing the boys will be very disappointed about. Sometimes you can just chalk the bowling down to good hitting, and we'll get it better. The fielding was very poor for a New Zealand side that's normally very good. We were pretty poor, and we did look fairly rattled early on. It sort of took a while before Phillips of all people to come in and sort of look like we settled into that game a bit, because that just went at a rocketing pace to start, and it looked like we had no clue how to slow them down for a while there. But yeah, I mean, Head's hitting was just absolutely incredible. I mean, I started that innings with a real, let's just roll these motherfuckers, let's do the 76 sort of job, and let's put it to them. And, you look up an hour later and they're on 120 for none. So things went out the window pretty quick. Big winners for the Kiwis, obviously. Revenge this is real superstardom sort of launching pad for him at the moment. You just got to ride this wave as long as you can if you're him, and especially as a fan as well, because he's just got the potential to be a real rock star for this side. And then I think, as you said, Jack, I think Neesham really I don't think there's probably not much he can do now to play his way out of this team. I think that sort of performance sticks in the memory, and you think with the way we bat, we can get a platform that's perfect for him to launch at the end. So I think he's probably secured his spot going forward. I totally agree. I've been on Ish needing to come into this side. I think to beat India, I think he's just got to play a big role, and I guess that is everyone's goal at the moment, is finding the side that beats India. And I just think he's got to be a part of it. Again, it does maybe not give our side the best balance, but I don't know. There's maybe a tough call has to be made if the goal is to actually win this World Cup and beat India. But yeah, just an incredible game of cricket. And one quick shout out to the bloke in Vault, who's potentially listening. Can't remember name, but he did give us a big shout out and came up to me. So just what a moment in amongst all the boozing from that game. Incredible stuff. Incredible theatre.
Yeah, there was a lot of
you
emotion.
done is famous.
A lot of emotion in that game. I was sort of riding the waves as a Caps fan, obviously. Really toys out the cot while we were bowling, and it was poor. It was a poor bowling performance. Yes, they were good, and the fielding was probably at its worst. Death bowling was bad. But what's most impressive about this Caps side is just the fact that they didn't roll over. Like, just the composure to just stay in the fight and give themselves a real crack at chasing a ridiculously high score. And at times, but to chase it, when you're watching them chase it, it was a different chase. There was no smashing it everywhere. It was just controlled, cerebral in the way they took that down, and they were sort of on top of that chase or the run rate for most of their innings. So
I think these days you've got to not panic if it's 8, because you really only got to go at 6s or 7s, and knowing you can do 10s for 10 overs these days. That's right. You said, 90 off 10, 100 off 10 is very achievable these days. Even like a 50 off 4. I mean, you don't obviously want to be there, but it doesn't scare the guys as much. So I don't think you have to break it down as right, we've got to go at 8s the whole time. You've just got to stay in that 6 to 7 range and build it up, and then really launch at the end.
100%. So
Yeah, and I think
oh, okay, you go, Jacko.
oh, so I was just going to say what I like about where the Caps are at, and it probably leads into my ranking. So I've still got them dangerously high. Is the fact that I've seen now the recipe for how we beat Aussie and how we beat India, and I think like we've been close both times. I think that's the joy of tournament cricket is we've now, we've seen the recipe that works or close to work, and we've actually got an opportunity to play them either in a semi or a final and just tweak it and have another crack at it. So, I mean, we were a lot closer than I thought the result sort of shown against India. And obviously we're in two swings of the bat against Aussie, which are looking like, the cream of the crop of this tournament. So I think I love where the Caps are at in terms of we're actually going to get another go at these teams come finals time. And hopefully we've got those tweaks made and get the job done.
So yeah, and saying all of that, which I agree with. I mean, tomorrow night is a massive game. I mean, we lose that to a South African team that can put 400 on anyone. The nerves really do start to sink in, though.
Yeah. I think it's our run in.
Can't lose.
If you do, like, if I'm looking at this, you're most likely to make the final, most likely to beat India, most likely to miss out on the semis. As good as New Zealand are, I've still got them most likely to miss out on the semis just because their run could be quite brutal. Like if they do lose to South Africa, and they, like, to their credit, the two losses they've had against India, Australia, they could have gone either way. They could be 6 wins and 0. But it doesn't matter how they lose against South Africa, at the end of the day, that would be 3 losses on the bounce, and then that would mean that game against Pakistan is now suddenly must win, and it might be a snowball effect. Whereas Australia, they should beat England. They might not. And then from there, they're probably favourites in all 3 games.
I think
Aussie went out genuinely.
I think what's so exciting about like a tournament, and I think this is starting to heat up nicely now with a couple of close games. That Pakistan-Africa game was good. Obviously, our game and a couple of smaller nations getting some performances. It does change pretty quickly, though, week to week. Within a few days, a team loses a couple, and it really can change how you feel about them or their position. But if we're the side we think we are, even if we do lose to South Africa, obviously I know it would be 3 in a row, and that does form a bit of a habit. But if we're any chance of competing here and beating India, like, we should be very confident of beating Pakistan and Sri Lanka.
Even South Africa. Because should we touch on South Africa? Because I've probably got them. I think I would put them as the most likely to beat India, just in terms of the high ceiling. Like I could see them losing to all 3 teams in this top 4, but I could see them on any given day. Their best performance is probably higher than New Zealand and Australia's, if that makes sense. Like their peak.
Yeah, I think what we've got is India are the juggernauts because they've got the best bowlers and the best batters. And I think New Zealand, Aussie, and South Africa have all showed their batters can hang. Like they've showed that we can score upwards of that 400 and really put a total on a team. But in terms of Aussie, us, and Africa, the bowlers are probably the ones letting these 3 sides down. I feel like Africa's letting their batters down the least currently, which is probably why I've sort of got them, as that biggest chance to beat India because, Rabada's bowling so well and their spinners are going well. So, yeah, it feels like their bowlers are going to hurt the batters the least of these other top 3 sides as teams are going right now.
Just on India, just on India, obviously that we've got them in their own bracket. They're 6 wins. They haven't lost a game. They've won pretty convincingly either game. Do you buy into the fact that you need to lose a game to win a tournament, or is that just what's that?
Yeah,
nah.
I mean that is
in saying that, I definitely buy into guys using their runs up too early. So if a guy gets 100 the game in the semi, I'm like, geez, he could have saved that for the final.
Yeah, the only stock that I'll put in it is in the modern era, like it is just hard to win 11 games of cricket in a row. But that's a big ask. So I don't buy that they need to lose one. but I do definitely put in stock in an era where 6-7 teams can score 400. Winning 11 in a row is very difficult.
Yeah. Especially when like 5 of those 11 have to be Aussie, South Africa, us, and then 2 of those 2 again, sort of thing, isn't it?
Actually, I've came around on that. They might want to lose one very quickly.
Who have they got left? They've got Sri Lanka.
They just got to
South Africa,
slip
the
up games
Netherlands.
somewhere.
Honestly,
They
they'd
probably
almost
lose
be.
They probably throw
They'd be
that
better
South
off
Africa
losing
game
to.
almost.
I reckon they lose to South Africa because they know that South Africa can't beat them twice. So if they lose them once, South Africa's fucked. They're not beating them twice.
That's why I like our caps.
India,
You're not going to beat India twice at this World Cup, so we're in a great position. So is Aussie.
Yeah, India just quickly to touch on them, like their performance against England when they get finally put under the pump a bit with the ball. Their crowd once again, like Kohli gets a duck and it is just absolute silence. They just never get used to their guns going out. It's actually incredible how quickly they go silent. Like Gill gets out, silence. Kohli duck, silence, and you're like, oh, hang on, England are going to cause this upset of all, and they just don't even give them a sniff with the bat. Like, Shami and Bumrah just tear them apart, and they just do that with ease.
Yeah, 100%.
Something.
Right, I think we've sort of summed it up pretty well. Basically, no one's beating India, and I may be jinxing them, and that's okay. A lot of pressure on them. That's the plan. The
TMC curse.
The TMC curse is, you'd hate
New Zealand
to lose now.
no chance.
You'd hate to lose a home World Cup after winning every game, and then having all this money.
I mean, they don't have to lose any; they'll go undefeated.
Oh, yeah. Right, team. Thanks to Lugsy and Jacko, and we'll catch you all next time.
Yeah,
Catches.